Revealed, the hidden trillionaire who transformed a luxury hospital into a life-changing sanctuary. Jake Thompson stood at the entrance of Maple Grove's community center, sweat trickling down his back in the warm afternoon sun. It was a small town where neighbors waved from their white picket fences, and the stars and stripes danced proudly on every porch. Yet behind the cheerful facade, a storm brewed. His wife, Emily, fought a relentless battle against a chronic illness that drained their savings faster than they could refill them. The laughter of their 2 children echoed from the park, a bittersweet reminder of both joy and burden. Then one day, in the midst of a bustling shift, a call led him to the crumbling edifice of a long-abandoned luxury hospital, the eerie silence of its once grand halls clashing with the vibrant life outside. There, he met the enigmatic Victor Olcott, a man cloistered away, a trillionaire with a heart hidden behind layers of privilege and wealth. Whispers of his determination to sell the hospital flooded through Maple Grove, igniting the air with speculation and purpose. As Jake's heart raced, he felt the weight of the community on his shoulders. This place could become a sanctuary, he thought, his mind racing to conjure images of healing surrounded by the bustling laughter of familiar faces. He imagined a hospital where families found hope, where his children could play, and where Emily could receive care without adding to their mounting bills. Back at home that night, the flickering candlelight emphasized the fatigue on Emily's face, yet her eyes brightened when Jake shared his vision. "It's not just a building, it's our future," he said passionately. They held hands, uniting in hope, but the financial burdens loomed large. He spent sleepless nights sketching speeches, pouring out his soul into words that could convince the town council to support his plea. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue with renewed determination. Jake stood before a crowd of townsfolk, their worried expressions mirrors of his own anxiety. He spoke of resilience, of community, of a place for healing rooted in the shared struggles of everyday life. The air crackled with tension as he dropped his final words, pleading for understanding between those who had worked hard and those who inherited fortunes. The room fell into silence. People shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, internal conflicts rising to the surface. And then he saw Victor. Slouched in the back, he listened intently, his sharp gaze revealing nothing. Yet, in that moment, Jake felt a connection. Would Victor understand? Could he recognize the very pulse of the town behind Jake's passionate pleas for change? As Jake's thoughts scattered with the crowd's whispers of hope and dissent, he anticipated the town hall meeting that awaited. Would the town embrace unity, or would they let their past define them? The answer hung in the air like a promise, leaving Jake balancing on a sharp edge of hope, ready to take a leap of faith into the unknown alliances that may reshape their lives forever. The morning sun broke through the trees, casting long shadows on the community center's steps as townsfolk gathered for the crucial town hall meeting. Jake stood outside, pacing nervously. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Today could change everything. He took a deep breath and adjusted his tie. "Today is for Emily," he murmured to himself, the face of his wife flashing through his mind, her smile, the way it lit up their home even on the hardest days. He needed that light to shine through today. Inside, the scent of fresh coffee mingled with the anxious energy of the crowd. Tables were set up, filled with pamphlets and information about the hospital. Jake took a moment to observe. Faces he knew well wore expressions of hope, confusion, and even resistance. He felt a twinge of panic. Could he really rally them together? When the meeting began, daisies were set in front of the podium. The mayor introduced Jake, but to him, the murmurs of the crowd drowned out her words. He stepped forward, wiping his clammy hands against his trousers. The microphone squeaked, drawing a few chuckles that eased his tension slightly. Hi, everyone, he started, trying to connect with their eyes. I know it's a tough time for many of us. We're all dealing with our struggles. My family, too, we're in this together. He paused. The honesty felt good. He shared his vision, a hospital that wouldn't just be a building, but a beacon of hope for the community. Imagine a place where families can come together, where healing is a shared journey. His voice hitched slightly, emotions rippling beneath the surface. Jake noticed Victor in the midst of the crowd. He looked different today, his demeanor contemplative rather than guarded. The energy shifted as Jake spoke more passionately. We can create something beautiful here. Something that can benefit each and every one of us. As he spoke, Jake's heart raced, and he could feel tension rising in the room. But for that, we need your support. We need the community to step forward and back this vision. This isn't just about construction, it's about solidarity. A hand shot up from the back. It was Martha, an elderly woman who lived down the street. And how are we supposed to pay for this? We're barely scraping by as it is. The crowd murmured in agreement. Jake's stomach dropped. He had expected the financial questions, but hearing them aloud stung. I understand, he replied, pressing his palms against the podium for support. But Victor Olcott, the owner of the hospital, is willing to work with us. He believes in this vision too. He could see Victor's eyes flicker, following the room's reactions. Jake pressed on, desperation seeping into his words. This could become a legacy for our children. A safe haven in our town. We just need to take that first step together. Another voice chimed in, young and defiant. And what does he want in return? You don't just give something away for free. The skepticism in the room thickened, and Jake felt every gaze, every judgment weigh on him. Change is hard, he admitted, swallowing thickly. But if we don't challenge our fears now, we risk sinking into hopelessness for generations. We can't let this opportunity slip away for Emily, for our kids, for all our future. Silence enveloped the room. Could he sway them? Jake searched the crowd, his heart pounding as he tried to gauge their response. He wanted to believe they would stand by him. As he met Victor's eyes, he saw a flicker of understanding there. Maybe, just maybe, this was a step towards something monumental. Just then, the doors swung open, sending a gust of wind through the room, rustling papers and catching everyone off guard. A figure stepped in, someone unexpected. The energy shifted again, curiosity igniting a new tension. Jake's heart raced. Who could it be? And what would this new face bring to their already fragile hopes? The sudden gust of wind swept through the community center, rustling papers and drawing the attention of every person in the room. Jake squinted into the sunlight streaming behind the newcomer, struggling to make out the figure who dared to interrupt this fraught meeting. Murmurs filled the air as the crowd turned, eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Then she stepped forward. It was Lydia, the town's reclusive billionaire. Known for her philanthropic efforts, but hardly ever seen among them, she was a living legend whispered about in grocery stores and church pews. Her presence felt electric, and for a moment, the chatter ceased. Everyone waited on edge, holding their breath. Jake felt a swell of uncertainty. Had she come to dismiss the idea? Or perhaps to offer a lifeline? Good morning, everyone, Lydia said, her voice steady, cutting through the chilly reception of the crowd. I hope I'm not interrupting. I heard about today's meeting, and I felt it was important to be here. She locked eyes with Jake, a warm smile gracing her lips. Just like that, the tension in his chest eased a little. Lydia moved toward the podium, her heels clicking against the wooden floor, resonating with authority. As many of you know, I've dedicated my resources to various causes. But today, I want to talk about this specific project. She gestured to Jake. Your vision for the hospital is not just a dream, it's a necessity. And I want to help. Gasps echoed, the crowd stirred. Who among them would have imagined the elusive Lydia showing support for a local cause? Questions buzzed through the room like a swarm of bees, yet Jake stood still, stunned. Did he hear her right? Help? Many of you are concerned about costs and funding, she continued. This town has always shown resilience, but it's time to turn this energy into action. I'm prepared not only to pledge funds for the hospital, but to ensure that it serves as the heart of our community. Jake swallowed hard, a fresh wave of hope washing over him. But he hesitated. Why now? Why this? Lydia took a deep breath. Because I spent years building a legacy of wealth, and recently, I realized that wealth means little if it doesn't benefit those around me. I grew up here. I understand our struggles. And I believe Jake's vision has the power to unite us. The room was abuzz now, with excited whispers and tentative hope, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her declaration. Could it really be this simple? Could Lydia's wealth truly transform their vision into reality? Martha raised valid concerns about funding. He interjected, needing to probe further. What will the community need to commit to this partnership? Lydia's calm demeanor didn't waver. The commitment will require hard work, and I mean real effort from all of us. It will require transparency and communication. We'll have to build trust between ourselves and create a board to oversee the project together. The murmurs turned towards skepticism once more. How can we trust you? Someone called out. Trust is earned, Lydia replied, her gaze cool and unyielding. I ask that you give me this chance. Together, we can create a hospital that embodies hope, healing, and unity. A place that turns our dreams into reality. Silence hung heavy in the air as those words sank in. Jake couldn't help but feel the weight of possibility transform into something tangible. It was a breathtaking shift, but alongside excitement grew apprehension. Could they trust her? Just as the crowd began to respond, murmurs of both skepticism and excitement battling for dominance, the doors swung open a second time. A tall figure stood at the entrance. Once again, Jake felt his heart leap. The tension shifted yet again, as if fate had more in store for them before this meeting concluded. Who was this new arrival, and how would their presence alter the unfolding story? The new figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, framed by the sunlight that streamed in like a spotlight. People turned, some gasping, others whispering, as Jake squinted harder to make out the expression on their face. The figure took a step forward, and gasps turned into murmurs of disbelief. It was Aaron Jacobs, the charismatic entrepreneur who had left town years ago to chase dreams far beyond the Maplewood borders. He was a local hero, a man whose rags-to-riches story had inspired many to reach for more. And now, weeks before an important charity gala, he appeared unexpected and seemingly out of nowhere. Aaron! Someone shouted from the back. What brings you back? Jake's heart raced. He hadn't seen Aaron since they were kids. Memories flooded back, endless summer days, shared dreams. But things had changed. Rifts had formed when Aaron had chosen to leave. Aaron's eyes blazed with determination as he surveyed the room. I couldn't stay away any longer, he said, his voice booming, strong and full of conviction. I heard what Lydia is proposing, and I knew I had to be here. Jake couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and dread. Moments like these could change everything, a stirring promise, but also an unsettling sort of jealousy. You believe in this project? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Believe in it? I want to invest in it, Aaron declared, stepping up beside Lydia at the podium, their presence side by side almost electric. I know firsthand that this community has been neglected for too long. Growing up, we all dreamed of something better, right? Well, I'm here to make sure that dream becomes our reality. The room seemed to hold its breath, caught between hope and uncertainty. What does that mean? Someone shouted from the back. What is in it for you? Aaron smiled, warm and genuine, his confidence radiating. What's in it for me is seeing our community thrive. I've learned a lot in my time away. I've made mistakes, but also found solutions that I believe can help us here. Together, with Lydia's resources and my experience, we can build something incredible. The crowd erupted with enthusiastic cheers, but Jake remained cautious. He had hoped Lydia was the key, but now with Aaron here, it felt like a double-edged sword, more help, but also greater expectations. What happens next? He heard himself ask, unsure yet desperate for clarity. Lydia turned to him, her expression earnest. We set up a meeting. We outline our vision, expectations, and how we can work together. Transparency is critical. If we are going to earn trust, we have to show we mean business. Jake nodded, But inside, he felt a knot of worry. What if the partnership faltered? What if something happened to tear them apart again? But he couldn't deny the thrill of hope that charged the air. A community hospital felt closer than it ever had before. Yet shadows loomed behind every bright possibility. Just as discussions began to pick up, a sharp voice broke through. "And what makes you think we'll trust you?" It was Martha again, always ready to challenge the status quo. "You both may have the money, but actions speak louder than words." Jake turned to see Lydia and Aaron exchange glances. A flicker of concern passed between them, but they stayed composed. "In time, we will show you," Lydia replied firmly, "and we welcome your scrutiny. But right now, we need to focus on how we can move forward together." The atmosphere shifted again. Tension gripped the crowd. They leaned in, eyes darting between the three figures on stage. Jake could feel the weight of the town's expectations resting heavy on him. What would he say next? Could he stand at the forefront of this change? Could he lead a community that had been torn apart by doubt before? As he opened his mouth to speak, a gunshot-like sound suddenly echoed from outside, sending shockwaves through the audience. It wasn't the meeting that had been expected, and Jake froze as panic rippled through the crowd. What would happen next? Was this a threat to everything they'd worked for? Or simply an unfortunate accident that would test their resolve? As the crowd surged toward the exits in fear, Jake felt the ground shifting beneath him. Jake's heart thumped loudly in his chest. The surge of chaos around him was almost palpable. People jumped from their seats, eyes wide with shock. He glanced at Lydia, her face drained of color, and Aaron, who stood firm, a protective stance freezing him in place. The gunshot had shattered the moment, leaving only questions hanging in the air, weighted with impending dread. "Stay calm," Lydia yelled, her voice cutting through the clamor. "Everyone, please. Let us not panic. We need to figure out what just happened." Jake could barely hear her words over the frantic whispers and the stampede of feet rushing to exits, but her fierce determination grounded him. "We have to help them," he shouted back, and Lydia nodded, flicking her gaze toward Aaron, who was scanning the edges of the crowd as though assessing the danger. Then, just outside the open door, another sound reverberated through the air, a sharp cry. Jake's gut twisted. "What is going on?" he yelled, forcing his way closer to the doorway, where shadows blurred against the intensity of the sun still streaming behind them. With his pulse racing, he pushed through the crowd and caught a glimpse of chaos unfolding outside. A figure lay sprawled on the ground. Beneath the scattered sunlight, Jake squinted, trying to make sense of the scene. Panic rippled through the attendees who had burst outside, their faces pale and trembling. "Call 911. Someone screamed, but the words were lost in the swell of fear. Jake could feel his breath catching, a heavy weight bringing him to a standstill as he turned back, catching sight of Aaron and Lydia, each person shook by the gravity of the moment, but also drawn together by the urgency of their situation. "We should stay together and help," Jake insisted, desperation stabbing at his tone. Aaron nodded, his face grim and serious. "Lydia, can you check on the person? I'll keep everyone calm here." He nodded toward the crowd, some still shrieking and others standing mute, caught between fear and curiosity. "Right," Lydia replied, her voice steady, and she rushed out the door, Jake close behind her. As they stepped outside, the sun felt too bright, too harsh against the cloud of uncertainty hanging in the air. Jake's eyes darted across the scene, settling on the crumpled figure, a local man, well known and beloved, lying motionless on the pavement. "No, no," Jake murmured, feeling his stomach drop. This can't be happening. A knot formed in his throat, churning uneasily as the reality set in that this man was a vital part of their community. The distant wails of sirens could be heard in the background, a siren song of urgency. Behind him, he heard Aaron trying to organize the crowd, urging them to step back. "Give them space," he called, determination in his voice. But as Jake knelt closer to the fallen man, panic stripped away any sense of hope. What could he do? What if this was a sign of worse things to come? Suddenly, a thought crashed mercilessly into his mind. If someone had shot at a founding member of their community, Was there a chance they would aim next at the plans for Lydia's hospital? The spotlight that had shone on their dreams now felt overshadowed by the weight of fear. "Jake!" Lydia shouted, drawing him back to the present. Her voice sliced through the chaos, pulling at his focus. "We need to get him help. We have to get everyone to safety." He stood up abruptly, his mind racing as he scanned the crowd. Just like before, they had dreams. But now there was an enemy hidden among them. What if this is just the beginning? Jake's whisper barely escaped as the sirens grew louder. As the first responders arrived, Jake remembered Aaron's vow to transform their community. But now, after this chaos, how could anything ever feel safe again? They had been trying to build something, yet here they were standing at a precipice, teetering on the edge of disaster. The thought sent a shiver through him. "What if we lose everything?" he murmured, his eyes wide as he shifted between dread and determination. Driven by a sense of urgency, he faced Lydia, knowing that they needed each other now more than ever. "We need to act fast. If this person targeted him, who else are they after?" Little did they know, the truth about the threat was just beginning to unfurl, revealing deeper secrets that could shatter their hopes and redefine their mission. What would they discover next, and could they survive the storm that was brewing within their community? The chaos outside spun around Jake, a whirlwind of emotions that threatened to pull him under. The distant clanging of a metal stretcher and the flashing lights of the emergency vehicles brought some clarity, but fear clung to him like a second skin. "We need to get control of this situation," he urged Lydia. "People are scared, and fear makes them reckless." She nodded, her determination flickering like a candle against a storm. "We have to know what we're dealing with," she replied, her gaze darting back toward the fallen man. "If this was targeted, we can't just let it continue." With that, they both turned back to Aaron, who had gathered a small group of the more composed attendees. "We need to secure the perimeter," he said firmly. "Get people to go home. This isn't the time for curiosity, it's time to protect our community." Jake felt a rush of admiration for Aaron's leadership in the face of impending disaster, but that emotion quickly twisted into dread. What if the danger was closer than they thought? "Lydia," Jake said, urgency threading through his words. "We need to dig deeper into this. People are rattled, and they will start blaming each other. We can't let paranoia take root." While Lydia busied herself establishing a small triage area, Jake peeled away from the group, scanning the street. His heart raced as his mind raced through every possible scenario. He recalled the tension around the new hospital project, the excitement, yes, but there had also been dissent. There were factions within their town, people who wanted to retain its old character, people opposed to change. Someone might see this tragedy as an opportunity to lash out. Suddenly, a woman stumbled past him, tears streaming down her face. "They didn't have to do this," she wailed. "He'd help anyone, save anyone." Jake wanted to comfort her, but felt paralyzed by the enormity of the moment. Instead, he offered a shoulder to lean on, knowing they needed each other now. Why would anyone want to hurt him? She gasped, clutching her chest. He cared for this town more than anyone. "What is happening?" "It's hard to say," Jake replied, a lump forming in his throat. "But we have to stay alert. We need to figure this out together." Just then, a sound pierced through the despair. A sharp crackle from a nearby police radio caught his attention. Jake stepped closer, the words that floated from the speaker shocking him to his core. There had been similar incidents elsewhere. Multiple reports of suspected shootings on the rise. His breath quickened. This isn't just random, he thought, dread thickening in the air around him. There was a deeper plot unfolding, and it did not just revolve around a single innocent life. "Jake." Lydia's urgent tone redirected his focus. She had stepped away from tending the injured. "I just heard from a friend in the station. They think this may be more than just a local issue." "How can that be?" he whispered, fear creeping through his veins. "We need to look into past grievances in this town," Lydia said, her voice filled with fire. "If someone wants to keep us from building the hospital, that means they'll fight tooth and nail." As Jake glanced at the bodies of distraught community members and the flashing lights of emergency vehicles, he felt a dread pull at the edges of his heart. It wasn't just about saving a life anymore. The essence of everything they hoped for, every dream of forging a new future, felt under siege. "We can't let them win," Jake said, feeling a surge of determination. Little did they know that the real enemy was waiting in the shadows, strategically plotting, and they were about to uncover a conspiracy that ran deeper than anyone in their tight-knit town had imagined. Who would emerge as the beacon of hope in a tale spiraling into darkness? They would soon find out. Jake took a deep breath, pushing the intensity of the moment against the walls of his mind. He could see fear etched into the faces of people around him. The woman he had comforted earlier had retreated to sit on a nearby curb, gazing into her hands like they could provide answers. "Lydia," he called over the noise, watching her as she spoke with Aaron. The group was growing. The patients, the relatives, even town residents who had heard the sirens, they all circled the chaotic scene like moths drawn to a flame. "Can we get a volunteer group?" She turned, eyes blazing with purpose. "What did you have in mind?" "We can't wait to be victims here," he said, heart racing. "Let us find a quiet place to gather intel. Do the stations have more updates? We need to know what we're walking into." "Right." Lydia nodded, her resolve infectious. "Aaron, we'll take a few of the calmer folks with us, Lucia, Sam, maybe some medical staff." As they organized their mini-expedition, the air felt electric with urgency. They moved through the crowd, trying to keep focus. As they stepped into the less frantic back alley, Jake felt almost suffocated by the reality of their task. It wasn't just about hushed whispers anymore. It was a matter of life or death. Once they found a quieter corner, Jake focused on narrowing down their search. "Look for any connection. Who stood against the hospital? And what kind of group are we dealing with?" Not long after they started brainstorming, Lucia, a local therapist, offered a lead. "I've heard grumblings from an old faction, those who believe the town is losing its charm. They hated the idea of new construction. Now it's escalating." Jake felt the knot in his stomach tighten. What if this has been brewing for months, not just about the hospital? "You mean they're actively trying to scare people?" Lydia questioned, the cold dread creeping over her again. "People think they're fighting for a cause," Jake said, his voice barely a whisper. "But it looks like someone might have gone too far." As the conversation deepened, their phones buzzed. The notifications were relentless, new reports cascading in, social media filled with frantic posts and false claims. A timeline of shootings, each incident painting a portrait of fear. "Look at this," Sam said, shaking his head. "People blaming one another. Family members turning against each other." "It's like it's a contagion," Lydia interjected, her face pale. "And we might be the only ones who can stop it before it's too late." They started planning a town meeting, a way to bring everyone together. "We can't let this divide us. It's time to face these fears openly," Jake insisted, fueling the passion in the group. But as they set their plans in motion, Jake couldn't shake a gnawing feeling. Yes, they were pushing back against the chaos. But who were they really up against? You could feel the shadows stirring, lurking just beyond their reach. The air seemed to still as they agreed to gather more information. But there was something unsettling in Jake's gut that wouldn't let go. What if the monster they were trying to confront was even closer than they imagined? "Lydia, these folks we're inviting, do we know they come with honest intentions?" He suddenly blurted out, the doubt surfacing. Lydia's eyes fixed on him, a mask of determination now tinged with uncertainty. "We have to believe they will. After all, we're fighting for everyone's future. We have to." As they split up, focusing on their roles, Jake's heart raced not only with fear, but with the sense that this was only the beginning. They were about to walk a tightrope between hope and despair. But just how far would the conspirators go to protect their agenda? It was a question that hung in the air, pulsating with tension, and Jake knew the answer could change everything. The town meeting was set for the following evening, but as the hours dragged on, every tick of the clock felt heavier than the last. Jake's mind raced with a whirlwind of thoughts. How had things escalated so quickly? How could they convince people to see the threat for what it really was? That night, he sat on his porch, the warm breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers mixed with the unmistakable charge of uncertainty in the air. He watched the shadows dance in the fading light, each flutter making him think was fear whispering through the streets of their community? Or was it something darker, lurking just outside the halo of light? His phone buzzed, snapping him back to reality. It was Lydia, and her message was urgent. "We need to meet. There are rumors spreading about the meeting. People are scared." His heart dropped. Scared people often did scary things. He hurried to the cafe where they agreed to convene. As he entered, he found Lydia at a table with Sam and Lucia, their faces illuminated by the flicker of a single candle. "What is going on?" he asked, sliding into a seat. "The word's out," Lydia replied, her earlier determination shadowed by worry. "Some are saying we're trying to incite panic. Others are convinced we're covering up something worse." Jake felt his stomach churn. "And that's new?" Lucia shook her head, her brow furrowed. "It's not just rumors anymore. There's a group actively trying to sabotage our meeting." "Great," Jake whispered, the weight of their goal suddenly feeling monumental. "What do we do?" Sam chimed in, "We have to be there, regardless. If we don't show up, it makes it seem like they have something to hide. We have to set the record straight." "But what if they don't want to listen?" Lydia's voice trembled, revealing her vulnerability. "What if they're only there to disrupt?" The thought sent a shiver down Jake's spine. "We make sure we're prepared. If they come to shout or threaten, then we handle it calmly. We need to be the voice of reason." As they each grappled with their own fears and plans, Jake caught a glimpse of hope in Lydia's eyes. He realized they each had a part to play, and together, they could potentially steer their town away from the brink. As the night wore on and conversations turned to strategies, Jake's cell phone buzzed again, this time from an unfamiliar number. Curiosity prickled at him. He opened the message, and his chest tightened. It was a shaky recording of a gathering he recognized. People from town, faces twisted in anger, rallying in what looked like a dilapidated barn. The caption read, "They want to stop us. Time to show them what happens when you fight back." His heart raced. "We need to get this out. This is them. This is what they're plotting." Lydia leaned closer, her face pale. "Jake, if this gets out, it could escalate things even more. Or it could prove to everyone that we're not alone," he countered, adrenaline surging through him. "Someone needs to see how deep this goes." As they deliberated, the urgency in the air crackled like static electricity. Would the town meet tomorrow with open minds, or would they be facing something far more sinister? Jake felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Was risking it all worth the hope of bringing their community together? Or was it just another step into the unknown? As they prepared to leave, an unsettling thought crept back into Jake's mind. The closer they got to the truth, the more danger they would face. In that quiet moment, as they stepped out into the darkness, the question lingered: how far would they have to go to confront the shadows lurking in their very own backyard? The air felt heavier than ever as Jake, Lydia, Sam, and Lucia stepped into the cold embrace of the night. The stars flickered above like distant sentinels, watching over a community perched at the precipice of unrest. Jake's heart drummed in his chest, the enormity of what lay ahead settling over him like a thick fog. "Let us split up for a bit," Lydia suggested. "We need to circulate the video quietly, see who believes us before the meeting. We should feel out who's on our side." Her voice was steadier now, but the worry still shadowed her eyes. Jake nodded, knowing the importance of their mission. "Meet back here before dark. We have to be ready whatever happens." His voice held a quiet determination, one he hoped would carry them through the chaos that threatened to unfold. The group dispersed, each wading through the push and pull of fear and resolve. As Jake walked through the dimly lit streets, he could feel his pulse quicken with every step. The memories of laughter, celebrations, and togetherness in their community felt distant now. All he could think about were those twisted faces in the video, the anger brewing in their hearts. He stopped by the bakery he'd frequented as a kid. The familiar scent of bread and cookies wafted through the open door, tempting him to step inside. But he couldn't afford the distraction. Instead, he shuffled past, forcing himself to focus. Jake spotted Ms. Carter, an elderly resident who always seemed to know everything happening in town. She sat on her porch, sipping tea under the glow of a single light bulb. As he approached, she offered a gentle smile, her silver hair catching the light. "Hello, Jake. You look troubled." "I am," he admitted, taking a seat beside her. "There's something going on, something bigger than us. People are scared, and it's only getting worse." Her eyes narrowed, a deep understanding settling in them. Fear can twist the best of people. It makes them do crazy things. He frowned, processing her words. "We found something, a video. It shows people rallying, planning something dangerous. We're trying to stop it at tomorrow's meeting." Miss Carter's gaze shifted to the shadows beyond the yard, deep in thought. "Promises made in fear are not easily broken, Jake. You have to remind them of what they stand to lose." Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread, urging him to consider the bonds that tied their community together. "I'll try," he replied, rising from the porch. He felt a flicker of hope, ignited by her steadfastness. With a final wave, he left, letting the weight of her wisdom anchor him as night deepened and uncertainty crept closer. Hours later, the cafe's lights flickered back on as Jake met up with Lydia and the others. They exchanged their findings, sharing whispers of support and concern. Faces shone with resolve, but Jake could see the shadows of doubt swirling in their eyes. As they pieced together their strategy, the door swung open, revealing a figure shrouded in a dark coat. The room fell silent as they stared. It was Tom Collins, one of the leaders of the opposing group. His posture was relaxed, but there was a fire hidden under the surface. "Thought I'd find you here," he said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "I believe we need to talk." Tension sizzled in the air, electrifying their surroundings. Jake's heart dropped. The encounter felt like the calm before a storm. Did Tom come to intimidate or negotiate? The question lingered, a shadow of doubt now hovering over their plans. Would this be a turning point, or had they just unwittingly stepped into a ticking time bomb? Jake's pulse quickened as Tom stepped across the threshold, tension wrapping around the room like a thick fog. Lydia's eyes narrowed, calculating, while Sam clenched his fists. But Jake couldn't let fear take hold. "What do you want, Tom?" he asked, his voice steady though the knot in his stomach tightened. "I think we need to clear the air before your little town meeting," Tom replied, his tone casual, as if they were discussing the weather instead of community upheaval. "You're stirring up a lot of trouble that could come back to bite you." Lydia leaned forward, her voice firm. "And you think threatening us will help?" "We're not going to back down, Tom. Not when lives are at stake." A smirk crossed Tom's face, but his eyes glinted with something dangerous. "No one's threatening anyone, Lydia. Not today. But just know, those who challenge the status quo often find themselves in deep water. You all are clearly passionate about this hospital. But how passionate do you really think the town is?" Jake swallowed hard, trying to keep his composure. "We've got to unite, and you can't stop that." He felt every heartbeat deep in his chest. "You're just a voice of dissent in a room full of hope." Tom stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Hope can be a double-edged sword, my friend. You just might cut yourself on it." Then he turned, striding for the door. "Consider this a friendly warning. You don't want to go to tomorrow's meeting thinking it's all about sunshine and rainbows." The air crackled with fear as he left. Silence enveloped them, heavy and thick. Jake could feel the uncertainty wash over the group. "We can't let him scare us," he declared, though his voice wavered. "We're doing this for everyone. Hope will guide us." "Will it?" Lydia replied, her skepticism evident. "Hope needs a plan. Otherwise, we'll be caught off guard." "Let us get back to the video," Jake urged, desperate to regain their momentum. "We need to rally everyone who believes in this project. If we show them that others are supporting us, it could drown out Tom's voices of dissent." Hours passed, and as they refined their plan, Jake sensed the tension in the room transform. They weren't victims of fear. They were becoming a united front, channeling their hopes into something tangible, something that could embrace their community's heartbeat. The meeting day dawned, the sun lighting up Maple Grove. The nervous buzz around town felt electric. They gathered, standing in solidarity, refreshing each other's spirits. When they arrived at the community center, it was packed. The familiar faces of neighbors and friends shuffled in, tension and hope intermingling in the air. Excited chatter faded as Lydia stepped to the front, bringing the crowd's focus. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice strong. "This meeting is about coming together, facing the fear that threatened our unity." Aaron followed, sharing the urgency of their mission. As they spoke, Jake glanced at the crowd, scanning familiar faces. Fear was still there, but sparkles of determination shone too. Then it was his turn. The mic in his hand felt both comforting and worrisome, but he inhaled, looking out at the sea of expectant eyes. "We all know our community is at a crossroads," he began. "This is bigger than a hospital. It's about our future, about a legacy of healing and resilience. Together, our voices can drown out the noise of dissent." He paused, feeling the weight of his words. "But we must be vigilant. Tom and his group are sowing seeds of fear to divide us. We need each other to withstand any storm. We need to trust that, despite our differences, we can create together even in the face of doubt." Cheers erupted from the crowd, fueling his spirit. "We have the power to turn fear into action." He raised his hands, feeling the energy surge among them. "Together, we can rally our voices to support Lydia, Aaron, and each other. This library of our community can't be written in silence." Just as excitement built, a familiar figure pushed through the door. Tom, flanked by several townsfolk who appeared uneasy but determined. Murmurs swept through the room. "Looks like he brought company," Lydia muttered, clenching her fists. As Tom addressed the crowd, his demeanor shifted. "Listen here, everyone. I'm not here to fight, maybe it's time to listen instead. Let us talk about the future of our town without the theatrics. We need each other." "Why did you come?" Aaron challenged, voice steady. "It's simple," Tom continued, his hand slicing the air for emphasis. "We believe in the pride of Maple Grove. I think we need to redefine what that pride looks like. Change is scary for people who have always fought for their values." Jake took a breath, heart pounding in his chest. "What are your values, Tom? Exclusion? What has changed for you?" "This town is bigger than your dreams. We can preserve its heart without trial and error," Tom retorted. But the guard around Jake dissolved. "That heart has always been about growth and possibilities. We're not here to erase what was there. We're here to embrace what could be." He stepped forward, urgency stamped across his face. "People are scared, and we can't let fear poison our connections. We can unite our passions." As murmurs filled the air, Jake realized this wasn't just about sides. It was connecting fragile threads among everyone in the room. "If we don't tackle our fears together, we risk losing Maple Grove's spirit." Beneath the competing narratives, something transformed in the room. Voices lifted, fear gave way to resolve, and hope etched its place amid uncertainty. Tom's hardened facade began to crack, and reluctant discussions unfurled around once hidden concerns. The meeting transformed under the weight of their collective spirit, and they emerged with a greater vision, not simply a hospital, not just a rebellious fight for a brighter future, but a united Maple Grove that could thrive through any storm. In that moment, Jake felt himself, the community whole, woven together by shared dreams. The vision blossomed, like wildflowers in the sun, resilient, colorful, and fueled by belonging. And as the crowd started lifting plans into action together, arms linked tighter than ever, he felt a surge of warmth ignite in his chest. In a world often marked by chaos, they had shifted together into alignment, not just to fight against something, but to march toward something powerful. Together, they could be the architects of their legacy, a healing sanctuary filled with compassion and growth, no secrets lingering, only light. And that light was a promise they all wanted to protect. Now, just as Jake cherished that moment, uplifting surprise flooded through him. The warmth surged and broadened, an invitation to every viewer sitting on the edge of their own stories. This is your call to become a part of our community, our family. Don't just watch from the sidelines. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us shine brighter. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, we want to hear from you. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. This is the moment to show your support because only true fans understand the importance of joining us on this journey.